Slam, Nuba!
We got heads!
Yeah!
My stepfather is not the kind of man who weeps.
He rarely goes to church.
We both hate funerals.
He is weary of priests.
And ministers that use death to scare people into Jesus.
He is skeptical of anything deemed holy that remains in clothes.
My father is who I wanted to be when I grew up. His blue-collar, shingled, overworked hands have always been a rooftop canopy for me to rest inside of. His shoulders have always been strong, sturdy places that have
always been stacked with sorrow, stress, street smarts, and survival.
His knees are a pair of wounded soldiers dragging themselves to the shrapnel provided.
There hasn't been much time for tears.
My stepfather has mountains for hands. Rough, intimidating, filled with thoughts, but the calluses remind me that healing may not always look pretty, but eventually it happens.
His face looks like a drought season, but I know that somewhere in his heart he has kept reservoirs of tears.
Because he is a man.
He's supposed to hold it in.
My father grew up barefoot in the rocky sidewalks of Juarez. The lack of moisture in the air dried his eyes when he was a boy, so he never learned to cry as a man. He developed two sleepy volcanoes for eyes, active only in times of catastrophe. So when I saw mi tío Fernando stretched like a canvas in his casket.
So when I heard that your mother was dying.
So when the woman who whittled you out of the strongest timber sat silver-haired in a coffin.
I stood in silence until the truth rooted itself into my back teeth, and all I could taste was the silent agony of knowing.
I sat without words,
wishing I could teach him how to cry.
We all know what happens to tears
when you refused to release them. If he knew how to break,
he'd know we would rebuild.
This was the first time I saw any sign of weakness. I started wondering if this pyramid of men I had known would fall in front of my eyes.
The plates of his face peeled back and the overflow ensued.
The dogs in Juarez disappeared.
They could sense the volcano's awakening.
His thickened feet finally caved in. He crumbled to his feet, held his head to the sky, and let the lava flow down his still face, melting away the iron rust that he wore his skin.
As I watched the boulders rumble down the mountainside of his jawline until his only black dress shirt,
I realized that he wasn't all concrete and masonry.
This totem pole of a man was mortal.
This was the highest I had ever seen my father hold his head.
His weeping was as much of a miracle as he was.
His tears were the most beautiful words that he ever spoke.
I realized that in the midst of survival,
there was always room for reflection.
This is for the men whose tears and vulnerability gave us a path to be passionate.
A torch forged in tragedy and triumph.
A key to be courageous. This is for my stepfather, caught between flower beds and beer bottles.
This is for my father, caught between swollen feet and broken backs.
Thank you for teaching me how to lift with my legs and lean with my shoulders.
For showing me how to play with flowers. For showing me que los hombres también pueden llorar.
That men can also cry.
This is for the men whose actions have always been bigger than their words, because their best advice has never needed to be spoken.